Action fanatics, welcome to episode 111 of the Bulletproof Podcast. I'm your host, Chris the Brain, and my co-host for this edition of the Bulletproof Podcast, he's back. It's the Toy Man, Chris DiPetrillo.
And I'm not playing around because we're here to talk about China O'Brien, one of the classics of 90s direct-to-video, direct-to-cable action cinema.
Absolutely, and as this episode drops, it is Cynthia Rothrock's birthday, so what better way to celebrate that big day than by one of her all-time classic films, China O'Brien. But before we get into that movie, we haven't had you on in a while. Of course, we were gone for about 2 months in general, but what's going on at Figures Toy Company right now, Chris?
So recently, we released, if you recall, a little while back, the special edition anniversary set of the Midnight Express, Jim Cornette, Beautiful Bob Eaton, Sweet Stan Lane, and Loverboy Dennis Condrey, in a special edition 4-pack that was sold exclusively through Jim Cornette and Cornette's Collectibles. We have released even more Midnight Express figures in conjunction with Jim, who's selling them directly through his website. So there's a couple of new 2-packs. We've got the Stan and Bobby 2-pack, the Bobby and Dennis 2-pack, and for the first time ever, a 2-pack of the original Heavenly Bodies of Dr. Tom Pritchard and Sweet Stan Lane in their Heavenly Bodies gear. Those are currently all available right now. They are not on figurestoycompany.com. They are at jimcornette.com, Cornette's Collectibles. Jim has them all. They are limited edition. These are the only way that you can get them. But besides that, FTC in the next couple of months, we're going to be having a lot of supplementary wrestling merchandise. As you know, we upgraded the style of figure when we did the Ultimate Referee last year with more modern articulation. There will be more staff figures, I guess is the best way to put it. There'll be an updated referee, there'll be a female referee, there'll be an announcer, managers, security guards, an MMA style referee, like a UFC referee. So all of those figures are due in probably between May and June. So stay on the lookout for those in the coming months at figurestoycompany.com, where you can also get DC Comics and Hanna-Barbera retro figures on sale now for $19.99. Licensing with Warner Brothers will be coming to an end. So right now, this is the only way that you can get these figures because once they are gone for good.
Now that's very tempting. But yeah, there you go, folks. Figures Toy Company. Always love to have Chris on here, and always love to know what's going on over at the toy company. Because you know I always have ideas for you. I know none of them happen, but I'll still give them to you, no matter what.
I mean, we're still trying to kick down the door and get those Charles Bronson and Michael Dudikoff figures made.
Yeah. You'd at least have one, well, probably two, because I'd want to keep them in the package, and I'd want, so that's 4 sales right there. If that doesn't justify it, I don't know what would. But yeah, let's talk about bulletproofaction.com, because something interesting happened not too long ago, Chris. You covered China O'Brien Part 2, which is a very elusive film in the world of physical media. And I think it was less than a week later, it may have been the next day, I don't remember exactly, they finally announced that on both sides of the pond, there's going to be China O'Brien 1 and 2 Blu-rays coming out. Very shortly.
Yeah, I remember when. Yeah, the pre-order. So I mean,
Right.
to
The pre-orders
backtrack,
coming. Yeah.
I remember when you sent me the link for the ones that were being released in the UK, and I'm like, oh, like I've got to get these. I got to make sure I've got something compatible to play them. Like, we need this because the last time those movies saw a release, we got the American release, going on like 20 years ago now, probably even later than that, of Part 1. And then Part 2, they did a double feature, which I believe is Region 2 or Region 4 only. So you have to have the compatible DVD player. So you sent me the link from was it Eureka who's putting out the ones
I believe so.
overseas?
And
It's nice to see that there are a lot of like-minded people out there because I guess it caused such a shitstorm in a good way that Vinegar Syndrome came out and was like, "Look, folks, there's no need to panic. Yes, we are releasing these." And it's funny because when I put out the tweet for the review, I'm like, here's hoping that someone like Vinegar Syndrome or MVD can kind of kick it up a notch and get these movies out there. And, like you said, within days, we got the announcement that we're getting literally two separate double feature releases of China O'Brien 1 and 2. So it'll be great to get those films back in the hands of people who grew up on them, like yourself and myself, and to get some new eyes on these classic films.
So yeah, while you fail me in making these figures that I want to come true, you help me out with the China O'Brien on Blu-ray. So I I think you should cover Mission of Justice, Iron Eagle, some of the Michael Worth, maybe Fist of Iron. Yeah, I think if you're the magic behind making Blu-rays, then let's make that happen.
That's it. I noticed that you've been reposting some of our classic articles. Thank you for reposting Black Belt the other day.
Mm-hmm.
I guess a little bit of an early celebration of the 1 year anniversary of my son and I meeting Don the Dragon Wilson and getting my Black Belt VHS signed. That happened last April. But
Yeah,
yeah, if we need to go back into the archives and kind of put that physical media karma out into the world, let's do it because there's a lot of stuff that I would love to see with, a Blood Fist Blu-ray set. Let's get on that. Let's get all eight of them with some special features and everything.
beautiful. It would be. Yeah. So yeah, definitely. And part of the reason I have been going into the archives, part of it was because I saw the DTV connoisseur doing it, our good friend Matt. And I'm like, oh, that's a good idea, because we've got almost 10 years worth of reviews. And obviously, I don't think anyone is going to just be exploring page after page after page of reviews. So, yeah, I've been trying to share one every day. And I will continue to do. I have a list here. I've got them ready. I've got them ready to go, which I'm going to do. So, again, 10 years. That's a long time. And 2024 is going to be a big year for Bulletproof Action and big year for the podcast. And it's a great day because, again, it's Cynthia Rothrock's birthday. So let's get into it. It is China O'Brien, I would have to say, one of her very best films, especially American, shot here in America, for sure.
Absolutely.
So this one directed by Robert Klaus, who was the man behind Enter the Dragon, Black Belt Jones, and a movie that we should probably do this summer when the Olympics are going on, Gymkata.
That sounds like a plan to me.
All right, I'm going to put you down for it because you never know. Sometimes Chad Cruz poo-poos a lot of these ideas, if he's even available. And then Ryan Campbell, sadly, has not seen so many of these films. So unless they're available where I can get him to watch it, you never know. All right, but
We
yeah,
need to get Ryan to watch Gymkata. I mean, everybody should watch
yeah,
Gymkata at least once.
I will. Yeah, we'll have to get on that. I've tried to fill in his gaps. He's too busy watching Star Wars and superhero crap all the time. But yeah, China O'Brien, Cynthia Rothrock. She's a cop in the big city. She also teaches martial arts classes. And that's how we kind of meet her at the beginning of the movie. And one of her students, and I don't think this was the name his parents gave him, it's Termite. And he tries to break the no liquids rule. You don't want to break rules when you're in the dojo, Chris.
Yeah, you can't hydrate. You got to sweat it out. You got to take the pain.
Exactly. This kind of leads some back and forth between China and Termite, where he's basically this is what is this going to do out in the real world? Basically, what we're doing here is not going to help in the real world, and it leads to him saying, "Hey, why don't you meet me and some guys in a dark alley?" Which is usually something you don't want to do, but if you're China O'Brien, you're like, "All right, I know where you're talking. I'll be there." She's a badass. After the class, though, Termite ends up getting assaulted by two guys outside. China has no idea this is going on. She's still doing her stuff inside. And then later, when she goes to the alley looking for Termite, lo and behold, some guys come up and start messing with her. And she just assumes these are Termite's guys. She takes out two of them. There's another two come in. She's taking everybody down, Chris.
Yeah, and I like how Termite got jumped in, you got to say probably like late afternoon, early evening, and then we jump to what has to be maybe like midnight.
Right.
And apparently, so we've a lot of hours have passed, and apparently we find out that Termite has been knocked out this whole time.
Yeah, either that or yeah, he just got scared and is staying at home, and then maybe went home, took a nap, and lost track of time. Maybe I don't know. Or he was knocked out that whole time, which probably isn't good. Uh, so then yeah, so Jonesy, China's assistant, finds Termite and finds, oh wait a minute, aren't you supposed to be in the alley with China? No, so they rush over there. Hey, these guys you're fighting, these are real just bad people, gang members probably. And it doesn't matter to her, she's kicking ass anyway. But then here comes the crucial spot, Chris, because somebody in the shadows has a gun pointed at Termite. And before he can shoot Termite, China shoots him, only to find out this was like a teenager. And this obviously messes with her head. And she goes to her boss, resigns as a cop. She's basically never going to touch a gun again, as her vow. And I'll tell you what, they managed to squeeze all of this in the opening credits.
Yeah, and most PG death by gun ever probably because there's no bloodshed. You just, she fires the shot into the shadows and you just see a body crumple down.
Right.
And there's no close up of the body or anything. It's just, we're told story-wise after seeing the incident, there's no way that you could have known it was a kid. And before you know it, she's on her way back home, back to small town USA. She's got to get out of the big city and get away from the demons that are haunting her now that she's committed this murder, which she was justified in doing
Right.
because she saw somebody pull a gun. But some deep regret there for Miss China O'Brien.
Yeah. I mean, this is the type of thing that could land you a desk job. Remember Mr. Al from Die Hard. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, so she gets in the car. We get a little kind of a bit of a driving montage with some cool. I know this was released in the '90s, but it's definitely an '80s sounding soundtrack.
Are you aware of that song? Now, this is not really my wheelhouse, but the song that plays while she's driving home
Shazam didn't know it.
is it is a song called Distant Storm by Tori Amos.
Oh, very
And
interesting.
Tori Amos, they billed it as Tori Can't Read, I believe was the name of the band,
Mm,
or her band. But it is currently, to my knowledge, the only way you can hear that song is via the China O'Brien film. There's no China O'Brien soundtrack. There's no B-side on any Tori Amos albums. So that is a bit of a rarity for mainstream music fans.
very nice. Little trivia being dropped here. So when China gets home, her hometown, her first stop is the police station, which may seem odd, but her dad is the sheriff. But know who doesn't know that? The new deputy, Deputy Lickner, who just looks like he. If we were gonna have
Looks a little greasy.
yeah, if you're gonna have a contest for like scummiest deputy in history, he's got to be a top contender. Like, you can just tell instantly that this guy is no good.
He almost looks like a real life Simpsons character. Like if there was like a gang member or a prisoner on The Simpsons, like it would be drawn to look like this guy.
Yeah, he was Snake's cellmate. Um, yeah, so he's there and he's kind of hitting on her because she's a pretty lady in his police station. He's the only one there because the other deputy and the sheriff are out at the Beaver Creek Inn. And the conversation between those two is interrupted because Lickner gets a call on the police radio from a guy named Summers, which at this point China has no idea who it is, but he becomes a very key part of this whole movie as we go on. We cut to her dad, the sheriff, at the Beaver Creek Inn, and Deputy Tyler's there, and they arrest a big burly dude named Barlow. Um, although everyone's kind of laughing it off because they're like, "Oh, he'll be out before you know it." And then,
And this movie, as we go into it, I think this movie has a lot of doppelgangers. And the guy that plays the bartender slash henchman
yeah,
in this film, I don't know if it was his look or his demeanor, but some strong Terry Funk vibes.
Yeah, I guess now that I'm thinking about it, maybe that's yeah. He did kind of look familiar, but I didn't think he was in anything else. But maybe that's what it was. He was
Definitely,
giving me
he
the
definitely gives off Terry Funk vibes, but there's a couple other people that give off even stronger vibes later on. We'll get to them,
well,
those people.
we will. All right, so uh, now she's going to go. China's going to go to the Beaver Creek Inn as she's driving in her cool convertible. Here she sees her old high school. Well, he actually sees her. It's Matt Conroy, played by the one and only Richard Norton. And he spots her while he's out on a run with his football team and very happy to see her. And we kind of get an indication that these two had some sort of relationship in the past. And he's going to give her a call later that night. And she's off to the Beaver Creek Inn. And when she gets there, we see Dakota, Keith Cook, for the very first time. And he takes notice of this woman entering the bar, but not in a pervy way like Lickner. He's got his eyes on everything going on at that place. And let me just say that the Beaver Creek Inn, it just seems like a place where horrible people flock.
Yeah, I would say so. See, I mean, it's about as greasy as Deputy Lickner is.
It's just these people are just uh, horrible. Like just, and they're all together. I guess it's good they're all together instead of making like non-horrible people feel bad. Although I guess that's what they're about to do. The bartender is uncooperative when China asks about the sheriff. Then Patty, another high school classmate, recognized, oh, don't you know who this is? That's the sheriff's daughter. Let me buy you a drink. And she thinks patronizing is a big word. And these people are just horrible and they're stupid. They're all stupid. I hated them.
Well,
Horrible.
that's what they want. They want you to hate them because
I'm
they're
I'm
all,
aware they've done their job, but my God.
And you
So,
mentioned, this was the first time we saw Dakota. This was the first time that we saw Keith Cook on film. Because as much as this was Cynthia Rothrock's, American breakout role, this was Keith Cook's introduction into American
was
martial arts cinema.
well, yes, but was Picasso Trigger before? I think he was. If it was
I
before,
think Picasso Trigger might have been a year later. Let's
okay,
take a
take a
look
look.
real
I know
quick.
he's in that. It's a smaller part in that, but he's definitely in that.
Okay, I take it back. Picasso Trigger was 1988.
There you go. So that was his first. But yeah, to your point, like a martial arts movie, this would
Yep.
definitely be his debut. Um, So then Patty declares to the bar, I'm going to show these guys your ass. I don't know if that meant literally or just to make an ass out of her or all of the above. But what I do know is them's are fighting words, and we get the obligatory bar fight. And when China starts fighting, the bartender says, "You're one of them chop suey fighters."
Yeah, China leaving a good impression. I like how she hit the kick that enabled like the Three Stooges bowling pin sound effect
Yes,
when
that
she
was
kicked the
great.
one guy and the eight guys behind him all toppled down too.
Yeah, that was good. More things need the bowling pin sound effect. I could think of one fantastic scene with that, and that would be the blind beggar bar fight. So,
And it's funny that you say that because after NXT tonight, SWAT was on, and I caught a glimpse of our man Larry with his role in SWAT
oh
tonight.
yeah, Larry Poindexter. All right. Well, Sheriff O'Brien is back in town now. He's got Barlow. He's going to process him, but before the lawyer is like literally at the doorsteps waiting. He's got the bail money check. He's got the paperwork. It's basically just a formality. They got to go in there, fingerprint him, send him right back out. And the check that was written to bail him out was just some kind of company that the sheriff believes was owned by the man we heard on the radio earlier, Summers. Mr. Summers is a bad guy. I think at this point we know he's a very bad guy.
Yeah, the bad guy behind the curtain. And how about that guy Barlow, who looks like, like a level one boss in a fighting game?
He, yes, and I like that he. Well, we'll get to that. We'll get. He's so big they couldn't find him like a deputy shirt. I'll spoil that. So China then shows up at the police station, and much to her dad's surprise, he's thrilled she's there. Hasn't seen
Walks
her.
right into the booking, because that's what
Yeah,
citizens can do. Walk right into a
right.
booking.
Well, when you're China O'Brien, and Dad's like, "Oh, this is great." Calls Maria, his housekeeper, I guess. I don't know, and hits her with the "Guess who's coming to dinner?" It's not Sidney Poitier, it's China O'Brien. Uh, So China, now we cut to that. It's China, her dad, and Deputy Tyler's invited over too. Lickner, you got to work late now because the rest of us are going out to dinner. Um, they're enjoying
Can
the.
you blame him for not wanting Lickner to sit down in his
Oh
house?
no, I don't know. I couldn't digest my food if he was sitting across from me.
And
Um,
the other deputy, Tyler, again, doppelganger city over here. Deputy Tyler reminded me of Tommy Turner from Porky's.
all right, was Tommy Turner also in American Ninja 2? Was that the name of the guy who's troubled? Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember that. You
Well,
can.
Tommy Turner, yeah, I mean, I don't. If you can make a link between Porky's and American Ninja 2, you will be the greatest man in history.
It's not the same guy,
Because
but I think the character.
no, 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 I know what you're saying. All right, so
Let's look at
because now you got me thinking,
everyone's.
getting sidetracked here. Let's see.
I got American Ninja
Let's
2 on the
see.
brain, obviously, but
No, it's Tommy Taylor.
there you go. Tom, let's see what's close. All right,
Tommy Taylor.
Tommy Taylor. He was in over his head in American Ninja 2. Um. So yeah, and they're kind of talking about what her future is. She just kind of mentions again, "I'm never going to touch a gun again. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to touch a gun again." She hears about how the town has changed since she's been gone. Then the phone rings and it's Matt, just as he promised. So he's going to make plans to pick her up and go out. We get a little exposition from Dad that Matt was in the Army and eventually was in the Special Forces. Came back home where he teaches at the high school and coaches the football team.
Yeah, and that was information that we heard about in China O'Brien 2 as well, because the villain of that one was a guy who was like smuggling drugs from Vietnam or whatever, and
Mm.
they briefly mentioned that Matt remembered him, from the army.
See, I have not seen China O'Brien 2 in so long. I completely forgot about that, which is why I'm so excited that it's coming on a Blu-ray. Um, to confirm the shady status of one deputy, Lickner, he's playing poker with Summers, the lawyer who got Bill Barlow out, the Beaver Creek Inn Terry Funk wannabe bartender, and they're talking about, oh, we're looking for the kid with the weird hand that being Dakota. Then Summers excuses himself from his gambling to go deal with another of his vices. He just has a woman tied up to his bed and just
And
had her in there, just waiting.
we should note for anyone who has not seen China O'Brien or anyone who hasn't seen it in a while to remind them, Summers is obviously being positioned as the big bad here. Summers looks like Ed Asner in the 70s. He is not an intimidating character. He's not like a big burly guy like Barlow. He's not sleazy like Lickner. He's just like this very unassuming old man, speaking with like a southern drawl, even though they're in, was it Utah?
Utah,
Uh,
well, he's
and
an out of towner though.
yep,
He's moved in.
and but he's the big Cretan. So, we'll see how he gets his comeuppance, but this is not a Bolo Young or anything of a villains of the similar timeline here. This is very different for a martial arts film.
He reminded me of or like he was like the poor man's version of what was it, Ben Gazzara from Roadhouse.
Yep. All right, good, excellent point.
That's what I think they were going for. Except he didn't listen to Shaboom and drive erratically down the road, which is, his loss as far as I'm concerned. Um, Back at the O'Brien house, China is hearing about these new people who moved in, and that's where we kind of find out this Summers is this big power player. Matt and China do go out. Matt tells her he wants to get to know her again. Richard Norton, Cynthia Rothrock, quite the combination. Made many movies together. They have good chemistry, Chris.
They do. And, China O'Brien was the first one that I saw of her output, before Lady Dragon and, even before movies that she wasn't in, like a movie that I love that you're not a fan of, Ironheart. So it was always weird to see Richard Norton leaning into the villainous roles afterwards, especially like with Lady Dragon, with what she goes through with him. Because I always saw them as, like the duo, like they're teaming
Right.
up. They were both on the side of good, so it was always interesting to see him kind of play against type in other movies with her.
Yeah. And yeah, they definitely made quite a few together. So we're oh yeah. So the next day, after we had the little reuniting of you have to imagine they were boyfriend girlfriend back in the day. The next day, Summers, along with his boy Barlow, visit a drug house that is part of Summers' empire, and confront Raymond, who's in charge of things over there and has been found guilty of skimming from the operation. So, not good time if you're Raymond.
No, Raymond is made an example of because we have to further expose him, to the audience just how shitty these people are.
Yeah, you don't want to mess with Summers. It just again, we're just building up Summers, who needs building up because again, to your point, he's not an over the top bad guy who intimidates you just by looking at him. He's got to earn his bad guyness. Um, China decides she's going to go on a ride along. Her dad gets a call, um, and while they're on the way, she tells him, Lickner got a call from Summers the other day when I showed up. So she's kind of wondering why would a private citizen have access to the police radio? The wheels are starting to turn. Now they're responding to a call made by Gary, who his timber, his lumber, it's been stolen. Other guys are milling it, and he's not happy about it. So the sheriff goes and asks this guy Ballard, "Hey, where'd you get that wood?" He's saying it's his wood. Oh, it's wood and this wood, and would you know? And how much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? But Ballard does not want to cooperate. And what happens? Of course, what should happen in a martial arts movie, we get a nice fight scene, Chris.
We do. When you mentioned, the guy that had I thought his name was Jake. Um, I'd
Was
have
it
to go
Jake?
back and look at it.
It may have
I think
been.
it's Jake. I think it's Jake Carnes, but he actually. So
I
you'll
don't know
notice
where I
this when
got
you
Gary
finally.
from. Who knows? I put these notes together, and the Lord knows what I'm writing down.
But you'll notice this when you get to see part two, because they were filmed, consecutively. A lot of the same people play different roles. So,
Hmm.
he's got this minor part
Or
here where
maybe he's
he's,
Gary in the second one.
no, he's Frank
Oh shit.
in that one. But if you remember my recent review of China O'Brien too, I mentioned how he was a sad sack, not unlike Jason
Oh.
Stillwell's father
Oh
from
yeah.
No Retreat, No
Now I
Surrender. So
remember. Yeah.
get ready for more of him. But you're on a run with Dad, who's the sheriff, so he's the law. Why not jump in and lend a hand when these guys are acting like some badass lumberjacks?
And Dakota is there watching from afar at first, but then he gets in on the action. She does a great double kick. China's being chased by a guy with a chainsaw. It's great. It's again what you want from a
Who
movie.
takes himself out of the fight by swinging the chainsaw into a metal post?
Yeah, idiot. These people are horrible and they're stupid, as I said earlier. Um, when Ballard's
They're
day,
all regular guy looking people.
yeah,
Like they're all, it's not like we've got like a cast of characters like, oh, here's your Matthias Hughes, oh, here's your Jalal Mary. Like, no, like these are just, and I think they get a lot of
Jalal
locals too.
Mary. Oh
So
boy, Jalal Mary doesn't have a very intimidating look with the ponytail. Maybe it's all right.
but I mean, put him in the role of Lickner with the slicked back ponytail and
Oh
that
yeah,
smarmy ass grin.
yeah, yeah. He would have been more of a force to deal with. So yeah, Ballard gets his day in court. The judge, who is obviously we find is in Summers' pocket, rules in favor of Ballard and believes the sheriff has overstepped his bounds. He also calls out China and says, "You're a private citizen. What? Why were you even involved in this? You have no authority." Sheriff calls bullshit on the whole thing, and that's when he realizes he's going to need to call in the feds because there's only so much he can do when everything's working against him here in this town, thanks to that no good Summers.
Especially the judge who I like to call not Ned Beatty because he was very Ned Beatty-ish. And to backtrack to the lumber mill fight, how about the random guy looking like Tommy Chong carrying a machine gun that was about to take people out until Dakota intervened? So yeah, we're in Doppelganger City here. We've got a lot of famous faces on the side of the evil squad.
Oh, if only they could have had the legit people. I mean, this would have been a much bigger film.
An all-star cast.
An all-star cast, yes. So China goes home. Dad goes back to work. Talks to Deputy Tyler in his office about like, okay, we're gonna have to go get the feds in. And unfortunately, what they don't know is Lickner has set up this little eavesdropping area somewhere in the station. He's got the little intercom that he can listen in on.
This guy's just like a little breaker box or something.
Yeah, he's really he's great. No, he's horrible, but he listens to it, and obviously, he's going to tip off Summers that they're trying to bring in the heavy artillery, as the gorilla would say. So later that night, when the sheriff's at home, he gets a call. It sounds like there's a fire. He said, "We'll call the fire department. I'll be right over." China once again is like, "Oh, I'm going to come with you," because she don't care. That judge ain't the boss of her. She's going to go with her dad. So they're heading out. But wow, this is a situation. There's so many times when you watch these movies from the past, from our youth, where you think, man, if they had a cell phone, none of this would have happened. They would have been out of this situation already. But in this case, if China had a cell phone, she would have just kept walking to the car. Matt would have picked her up. He would have called her on their cell phone. She would have gotten in the car with Dad, talking to Matt, and she would have died too. So this is like the reverse of what usually happens when you think, wow, if she had the technology we have now, they could have avoided all this. They could have called and warned it wouldn't have gotten to this step. But here's the reverse of that.
Simpler time saved her life.
And certainly did. So I say that because she goes back to answer the house phone, which who the hell has one of those anymore? And Dad starts up the car and it blows up. Sheriff O'Brien, rest in peace.
Which we get in slow motion and watch. We actually pretty much watch the car burn to a crisp in real time.
Yeah.
They linger that shot on there for a while she's in hysterics. And then, when things finally settle down, Richard Norton, Matt makes his way over and they're trying to console her. And then Maria's like, oh, I called Tyler up, like he's on his way here. And then the realization kind of sinks in, like, wait, what? He's coming here? And you find out that it wasn't just one car bomb that was set up this evening. It was two, because Lickner's got to take care of both of the law-abiding sheriffs so that he can help pave the way for Summers to take over the town.
Absolutely. So, Tyler, you're blown up too. We go to the funeral, and oddly, it's like the funeral for Deputy Tyler. I don't know if these were back to back, but it's odd that they didn't just have it be Sheriff O'Brien's funeral.
This double header at the cemetery.
Yeah, it's very strange. Um, so, with the sheriff and his senior deputy dead, it is announced that a special election will be held for the new sheriff in 5 days. So, not a lot of time. And in the interim, old Lickner, since he's around, he'll be running everything. And he's also, speaking of running for this election. So, who want to see that face on a poster? Not me.
With his with his pal Barlow as his new head
And
deputy.
there it is. Yeah, that's what I was. Yeah, and he just basically puts a badge on his flannel shirt. Doesn't.
Just the big oaf with Brillo hair.
Yeah, he's an idiot. At this point, China isn't sure if she will oppose Lickner in the election and follow in her father's footsteps. But then when she goes to the station to get her dad's personal effects, there's Lickner, there's Summers. They're having a meeting. Summers gives her some fake condolence. She sees right through it. She sees that Bolin has, as you mentioned, is the deputy, and she's like, "Nah, you know what? I'm gonna run." So see you at the on the campaign trail. And to his credit, Matt's right on top of this situation, Chris.
Yeah, he's like, look, you're running for sheriff. We're going to do a parade. We're going to do a rally. Like, we're going to get the people to support you. Like, you're what this town needs. We're going to make it happen.
Now, I have a question for you, and I wish Chad Cruz was with us because I would probably have just asked him, and he would have given us a very filthy answer. How much of this, what percentage of this is, okay, obviously he's like, we need to help the town. But how much of this is also he wants to get in her pants?
I mean, I think that we knew that they were going to be shacking up from the moment that he, first flagged her down and planted a kiss on her after not seeing her for 6 years. So, rally or not, he's getting some.
Oh yeah, he's getting. But I just was wondering if his motivation, maybe
I
trying
mean,
to.
I think he's a genuine guy. I mean, if he was really that out for her, I mean, she's vulnerable. Her dad just burnt to a crisp before her very eyes. He could have tried to slip it in that night, and he didn't.
Whoa, or at least that we know of.
This is true.
We do get a campaign montage of sorts, hanging up posters, making speeches. She calls out the judge right as he's like walking into work. She's just there, saying he's a corrupt asshole. There's a China
Told him he was
chant.
great in Deliverance.
Yeah, go play your banjo. Um, Lickner and Bolin are in the crowd for, I believe it's during the parade, and they spot Dakota. And at this point, you got to like, what is their issue with Dakota? He has, he's kind of just this weird guy who's lurking around. But they're all weird guys, so maybe he didn't want to join them. You don't know what the deal is at this point.
But
Um,
I think they need to make it that way because, Dakota was very ambiguous. So I think they did it to make you know that he was,
he was a good guy.
out to help China.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Later at the rally, Summers is watching from his car, and he basically it's ironic because moments after he's like, I've seen enough of this, the fire department shows up to put out the bonfire, and then Matt just goes right after the firefighters. He don't care. He's just gonna beat him up, and he does.
Grabs the hose right out of their hand.
Yeah, he's getting that hose, beating them up. Some goons show up in the crowd. Matt stops with the firefighters, goes beats them up too. Eventually, China has to stop her speech and join in, and so does Dakota, the mysterious one. And the crowd is loving this. They are eating this up. They've got themselves a sheriff who can kick ass, as opposed to grease face. The next day, while campaigning, Patty flags down China, apologizes for what happened at the bar, and she's very nervous because she can't be seen talking to China, but she does so in a frickin' right on the side of the road, like they couldn't have gone in a freaking building. But whatever. Uh, she tells China she believes Summers had something to do with her father's death because she overheard him talking about getting an explosives expert to come in. Patty does freak out because she realized someone did spot her talking to China, but she has served her purpose. She kind of redeemed herself in that scene, Chris.
She did, but do you notice how she didn't specify, oh shit, one of Summer's guys saw me. Oh shit, the guy from the bar saw me. It was just, it could have been anybody. It could have been, high schoolers out for a joyride. So, was she paranoid? Does something actually happen to her? Does she play a role later on? I guess it was just going to show the influence that Summer has over everybody where no
Mm-hmm.
one can be trusted.
So later, China's back at home. Matt goes over to see her and mentions, hey, that motorcycle kid is a little bit of ways again. What's he all about? So they kind of set up a little trap of sorts where they each get in their cars and go their separate ways and see which one he's going to follow. And this is where, yeah, he steals a kiss there from her just to make it look good for
That
Dakota.
was another kiss. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a kissing bandit.
he really is. Um, they do get Dakota, and he's like, "Hey, we're all on the same side here." And we get the little bit of a Dakota backstory that he left home to follow his motocross racing dreams, and who doesn't have those? And while he was gone, as no good dad, left his mom. So when he came home, there really was no home to come home to. But he found out his mom had moved here to work at the Beaver Creek Inn. And when he went to go see her, there was an incident, and that ended up getting his hand broken by Summers goons. And I believe, if I recall correctly, Keith Cook actually broke his hand before this, and they had to work that in, similar to the Keith Vitale Blood Brothers situation, I believe.
Yes, yeah, Keith Cook had, yeah, so they filmed it where it looked like, they mangled his hand. So for the whole movie, and spoiler alert, also in China O'Brien too, his hand is wrapped up in basically like black electrical tape, and he's got, this metal, you know, kind of like the connector for a chain link fence that he wears as a wristband with like the key to his bike on it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like a do-it-yourself cyborg kit for young Dakota here.
Um, and basically, his hand's broken, and he never saw his mother again after that night. Back at home, China gets an anonymous phone call that there's a bomb in her trunk, so they call in the bomb squad. They're like, okay, it's all good. There's no bomb. They pop the trunk, and there's dead Patty inside.
So she wasn't paranoid.
She was not. And let me tell you this right now. Well, I'll wait. We'll wait. Lickner, of course, is there as the acting sheriff, questioning China. Oh, how does this body get in your trunk? And didn't you get into a fight with her at the old Beaver Creek Inn? And all this. And Matt's was like, "Are you seriously questioning her?" Blah 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 blah. So later, we find that Lickner has like he's at Summer's place, and he's like, "Hey, I've got people who moved out of town voting for me. I've got dead people voting for me. It's all going to be good." And this is, you kind of should have known they were going to try some shady shit. And know who else knew that? Our boy Matt. So
Thinking ahead, proactive.
he gets his football players to become poll watchers. And they're waiting just to see what happens. A good thing they're there because uh, when the polls close at the high school, some goons come in to take the ballot box. Now they should just be counting the ballots, right? But no, they're going to take these ballots away. Travis, one of the football players, calls Matt in, and before you know it, Matt and China go to the school, and there's guys there to fight because, again, this is a martial arts movie, and we need fight scenes. So we get a gym fight, a weight room fight. Again, it's another great use of the talents involved in this movie, Chris.
Yeah, this is when Richard Norton, I mentioned in the China O'Brien 2 review, one of my favorite scenes is when he just body slammed a guy off of a balcony, like a stairwell. And there's a scene in the gym where he hits a flying body press, then he hits a drop kick, and then he body slams another guy. So Richard Norton, for all his martial arts skills, lot of roughhousing, a lot of just I don't want to say sloppy, but a lot of just basic primal instinct type of action with him. And then you've got China over in the other end of the gym, dodging weights that are being flung at her like shurikens. But it was a fun fight scene, using the high school gymnasium set.
Yeah. And note the Walter Payton poster that's hanging in the gym. Um, so after that, the results are in. China with a landslide victory, and this is now what I wanted to mention. You have a candidate, and I obviously the town knows because they voted for it, but they know that Lickner's no good. But how bad do you have to be that when the person running against you ends up with a dead body in their trunk, that does not somehow sway things into your favor? Like that, everyone just already knows it was she had nothing to do with it, and it was you bastards who did this. You got to be pretty. I mean, Lickner, you're useless, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I mean, even that name too. That name just is
Yeah,
slimy.
Lickner. Lickner, I don't even know her. You know what I'm? He's the worst. Matt presents China with her father's badge and a nice little bit of ceremony. And then a car just pulls up to the party. The guy gets out and he just starts shooting up everything. It's not even a drive-by. It's like drive, park, get out by.
Those watermelons were splattering everywhere.
Watermelons are spine. Yeah, ruining the whole party. Dakota, once again, in classic Dakota fashion, is off in the not too far distance that he can see what's going on. Comes in with his motorcycle, sends those guys packing. Does get their license plate, but that does not really matter because Maria, the housekeeper, dead.
In a slightly more graphic scene than the initial murder that sent China back home, because we actually do see a drop of blood on the side of Maria's head.
Oh, there you go. China and Matt go to the judge immediately after that. Like, you got to swear her in. She also has some warrants she wants him to sign off on. Um, and then the next day, she's deputizing the football players. She's deputizing Dakota. And they immediately start putting the squeeze on Summers' operations. We go to the drug house. That gets bulldozed. They go to a motel that Summers apparently owned, which was really just kind of a
Prostitution front.
yeah, indeed, it was a brothel. So they're escorting the girls out, the working girls, and Summers is feeling this heat, and he's already making plans to get out of town if need be. And now we go back to the Beaver Creek Inn. Time to search the place. They got a warrant to do so. But the bad guys are waiting for them, and doesn't look like they're going to get inside. But Dakota has the key. He just freaking drives his bike right through the window. In the bike
Drives it in, slides it right into Terry Funk.
Yeah, he pins the friggin' bartender in the wall with that bike. It's beautiful. Another big brawl here. We're really heating up now as this movie is winding down, and you know it's only a matter of time. But Dakota gets to Lickner, who tells him what happened to his mom. Summers killed her. So, minute Dakota hears that, he takes back off. China and Matt can't immediately go because they're still fighting, but they're like, as soon as they can, they got to stop him because you got to imagine what Dakota's going to do to this bastard Summers, who is getting ready to go to the airport when Dakota shows up. And let me tell you what, he goes into that stable. Dakota, that is, pronouns. Dakota goes into that stable. He has got his leather jacket on. He's got a rifle. He's got a bandana. He's got his long hair. He's got the gimmick hand. And I said, this is the action figure I need right now.
It would make for a cool action figure. I'm 100% in agreement with a lot of these choices.
We'll make it happen. Maybe I need to talk to, if you could make the Blu-rays happen, I need to like get somebody from one of those companies that do the Blu-rays and make them say that. I don't know. I'll figure it out. But China and Matt,
Like how Shout Factory does like the figure with the DVD release type
yeah,
thing.
that could eventually what it would lead. Yeah, they'd be like, "Hey, Figures Toy Company, we are putting out this movie, China O'Brien.
We'll take 1,000 Dakotas right now.
We would like you to produce some Dakotas so we could do a bundle. I would love that. So China and Matt do make it over there. Dakota's fighting in the stable. And that's where eventually he catches Summers before Summers can catch him. And he doesn't go all vigilante on the man. He does show some restraint. But the woman that Summers had tied up to his bed most recently, not as forgiving as Dakota.
No, because she's apparently untied herself and found a rifle
Yeah, they're
and
all they're everywhere.
fires the kill shot that I do like the fact that the impact sent Summers reeling backwards and it made Richard
Yeah,
Norton take a bump.
I wondered about that. Like, were they handcuffed together? What
Yeah, he
he
was
was
handcuffed
handcuffed.
to
All
him and he
right.
was walking him out.
He had to be because why did he take the bump for no reason? Okay, I almost rewound it, but I'm like, I was too busy typing up Gary when it was supposed to be Jake. So now there we go. Summers is done. Everybody else is going to go to trial. The town is cleaned up. There really should be no reason for a Chen O'Brien 2, but we find out there will be. And Dakota's like, all right, I'll stick around. I'll be your deputy for a while, at least till the trial is over. We get the end credits, and I will tell you what? I have not seen this one in a couple years. It's really damn good. It is,
It is.
again, one of Cynthia Roth, I was going to say one of China O'Brien's best. It is one of China O'Brien's best. It's one of the two best movies she ever did, but no, Cynthia Rothrock. Definitely one of her best American film movies, although it was done by Golden Harvest, who she worked for in Hong Kong. Yeah, just so I mean, it borrows a bit from Walking Tall, and throws in a lot of martial arts fights because that's again what you would be looking for when you're renting this movie or catching it on cable wherever you saw it back in the day. Yeah, and her and Norton are great. I love the Dakota character, one of my all-time favorite characters, I think, in any martial arts movie. Again, he had the coolest look. They turned a negative into a positive when he broke his hand. Um, this is an all-timer. What
Oh no,
say you?
I'm right there. I am right there with you. The only thing that I thought about, watching it with older eyes is, so this was supposed to be her breakthrough for the American market.
Right,
And that, they got a lot of locals, a lot of people that had not really been in a lot of stuff. I mean, the fight scenes against Summers guys, they're not very polished or anything. So it kind of struck me like, okay, like she had all these amazing fights in Hong Kong, but all of the major martial artists are all the good guys here.
right,
So you're kind of stacking the deck that way because you've got Norton, Cook, and Rothrock all, basically it's like a team, like a three-person force there. So, you really didn't have anyone. They got Billy Blanks to do the cameo in part two to go against Keith Cook and stuff like that. But, I think the one thing this movie could have used was someone like a Matthias Hughes, a Bolo Young, like someone who kind of had a little bit of, Jerry Trimble, he had been a bad guy in Breathing Fire and everything. So he could have just as easily been a heel in this one. So, to
oh
get
yeah,
like at least one showcase fight. But I mean, really, our heroes were never in any danger. All the stuff that happened to everybody else. They dodged a couple of bullets and Maria winds up dying and the father gets car bombed and stuff like that. But there was never really any danger for Dakota, for Matt, for China. So it really was just kind of one of those heartwarming stories of the good guys always win.
yeah. I like that idea. Yeah, Jerry Trimble would have been a great Summers, and that would have completely changed the film for the better. Um, There you have it, China O'Brien. And again, I know Vinegar Syndrome's pre-sale for those of us here in the United States and probably Canada will be able to pre-order sometime here in the month of March. So
Next week, I believe. I believe it's the 14th or 15th they're going up.
there you go. I will be on the
That's a
website.
day one purchase.
That is a definite day one purchase because it's been a long time coming. And thank you, Vinegar Syndrome, for finally making that dream come true. And you know what? Let's talk about, you mentioned it. You mentioned on Twitter, or Twitter X, if you will, Vinegar Syndrome. And if you want to mention us on Twitter X, you can do so at Bulletproof Pod and a Bulletproof Action on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. And, speaking of Bulletproof Action, there's always something going on over there, Chris. As this drops, I just covered the 36th Chamber of Shaolin because we know we have an audience for classic Kung Fu. We will be covering the new Roadhouse that's coming out later this month as well. Do you have any ideas what you've got planned, what you have cooked up for us in the month of March on bulletproofaction.com?
So I've been browsing the old school Kung Fu collection over on Tubi, our favorite app, and I'm looking at probably doing something from that genre later in the month. But I think that my first No Surrender Cinema of the month, I'm going to take a look back at a movie that I don't think gets a lot of love, and it really should, and that is The New Kids. And I'm not talking about New Kids on the Block. I am talking about a movie from the 80s featuring another, not a town being taken over by a slimy heel, but a very slimy James Spader trying to put the Mac on Lori Loughlin, and her and her brother have to fight back against him and his gang. It's a very underrated 80s flick. Hadn't watched it in a while, but watched it recently, so I think it's time to talk about it on the site.
I have never seen that movie, so I'll be interested in reading your review and maybe have to track down a copy. So yeah, we've got that. I don't know if anything else that is coming up. If I did, I forgot. Oh, you know what I want to mention? My Professional Wrestling announcing IWTV is now the home for Spot Monkey Promotion. So you could check out Battle in the Berg 3, which I provided play-by-play commentary for. It has an NWA World Title match on. Paul London was on the show, our good friend. So you can check that out on IWTV.com. And you know what? You can check out the next episode of Bulletproof Podcast because I mentioned it. There's going to be a brand new Roadhouse coming out later this month on Prime. We are going to be covering the original Roadhouse with the actual Terry Funk in it on our next episode of the Bulletproof Podcast. So stay tuned for that.
A 35-year anniversary this year.
And indeed it is. So we will be covering that on the next episode. Chris, anything else you want to say before we go?
I think I've pretty much covered everything, but if you want to check out my reviews, you can see them up on bulletproofaction.com, and you can also follow me and give me some feedback. Let me know that you're reading them. Tell me what you want to see reviewed. You can follow me on Twitter X at Zach Malibu. My most recent links are up there, including for Black History Month. I took a look at Fred the Hammer Williamson's South Beach, which also featured Vanity, Gary Busey, and Peter Fonda. So if you're interested in seeing what I thought of that film, watching it for the first time in years, go and check that out. That's my most recent review, along with an entire collection going back 7 years now of No Surrender Cinema.
Yeah, and I'm glad we got another Vanity project on the site because I think we're going to get to the point where we will have covered everything possible from Vanity. Wonderful. Wonderful woman, gone too soon. All right, folks, we're going to be going now. Maybe not too soon, maybe just in the right amount of time. So for the Toy Man, Chris DiPetrillo, I am Chris the Brain. I want to thank you all for listening. And as always, stay tuned for more of the Bulletproof Podcast. Action fanatics, welcome to another edition of the Bulletproof Podcast. I'm your host, Chris the Brain, and he is on a real hot streak as my co-host because he's back. This is like 3 in a row now for you. It's the Toy Man, Christy Petrillo.
That's right. Playtime is over. It's time to get down to basics with one of our favorites that we've talked about between you and I. It's been the focus of many conversations, and now it's finally widely available so we can talk about it and share our thoughts with you all out there here tonight.
Yeah, we are following up a conversation we had earlier this year, back in March, I believe, when we talked about the first China O'Brien. But since that time, China O'Brien is now available along with China O'Brien 2, which is the movie we'll be discussing, on beautiful Blu-ray on both sides of the pond. So if you're an action fanatic in some of the biggest markets in the world, you have access now to China O'Brien 2, which is such a gem, such a movie off the Blu-ray wish list for sure. And that's what we'll be talking about. But before we get into that, Chris, when this drops, we're already in July. 2024, halfway over. What is going on?
Father Time remains undefeated. He is just punching us with those 1-2 combinations, letting us know, like, hey, I'm not slowing down for anybody. My son just finished 3rd grade. I'm going to have a 4th grader in the fall. We're halfway to Christmas already. The 4th of July is next week. We're going to be hitting another major holiday. Before you know it, kids will be back in school. We'll be doing Christmas shopping. Who knows what we'll be podcasting about come November when Vinegar Syndrome has their big Black Friday releases. But
Mm-mm.
I know that you are mentioning this only because it's a nice segue into what's going down in August, a certain anniversary, or should I say actionversary that's coming up.
Oh, we are now, when this drops, less than a month away from Actionversary, and not just any Actionversary, the 10th Actionversary of BulletproofAction.com. It is going to be a month-long celebration, and I'm going to give you a teaser. It kicks off with Canon. And of course, we talked about it before. The big post for Anniversary Day, August 29, will be a Bruceploitation countdown, which
Counting
I
down
have.
the clones.
I am so looking forward. I am so intrigued of how that list is going to turn out. But let's not get ahead of ourselves because July is going to be a pretty awesome month on Bulletproof Action as well. Chris, I know one of your favorite series of all time will be returning with the first 5 episodes later this month.
And I take it that you're talking about a series that stems from the film that just celebrated its 40th anniversary last week. We have to be talking about Cobra Kai.
Absolutely. The final season, they're breaking it up in 3 different parts, and those first 5 episodes drop in July. I know you're going to be all over that.
I will be all over that. And as you duly noted to me in a conversation just last week when we were going over some of the upcoming articles and things that I plan on penning, the first episode of the new season of Cobra Kai coincides with the last episode of the latest season of The Boys. So that's going to be quite the busy week for myself.
Busy week for you indeed. And
Actually, busy
also,
day.
yeah, really a busy day. Very good. Yeah, just hopefully it'll be like 9,000 degrees out and you'll just want to be in the house anyway, and nobody will want to leave and just hide in the AC in front of the TV. You know what else is happening in July? Can you believe this? Talked about 10 years of Bulletproof Action coming up. 50 years of Death Wish.
You want to talk about Father Time being undefeated? I was born obviously after the original Wish was released, but that series is near and dear to my heart, especially our mutual favorite Part 3. I cannot believe that it has been that long. I've literally been watching those movies practically all my life now.
Yeah, I'd like to say that I was actually born a few months ahead of Death Wish. So, yeah, it's a big year. It was a big year for me. It's a big year for Death Wish. God help me that I've made it this long. One would think I had a Death Wish, but if I did, it's not coming true, fortunately. So, Death Wish celebrates 50 years, and I will have something special cooked up for that. Obviously, we all talking about series. Ryan Campbell's on top of House of the Dragon, and The Acolyte will wrap up in July. So he will be continuing that. One only can guess what Chad Cruz will have in store, although he did debut a new feature. So in theory, I could be jinxing it by saying this because it hasn't happened yet as we record. But maybe we'll get more of that from Chad. You never know. But it's all on bulletproofaction.com. As always, we encourage you to check it out throughout the week because there's always something going on over there. But without any further ado, Chris, let's get into it. Let's talk China O'Brien 2. According to IMDb, not a great deal of exact information as for when this thing actually surfaced. It said the UK got it in June of 1990, then Germany got it the following February, and all it said for the United States was 1992.
I feel like that's probably correct because my earliest memory of this film, I mean, my VHS tape of this film is from HBO in like late 92, early 93 at the latest. So that does make a semblance of sense, but it's also thrown off by the fact that this was pretty much filmed in conjunction with the first film.
Right.
You know,
Right.
there's a
So
lot of,
why did it
sorry.
take so long? Why did it what was the holdup?
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about that and, watching part two, there's a lot of footage that almost feels like it's B-roll footage that we saw in the first film. A lot of the same settings, the parade, the cookouts, the festival at night, the fireworks. We talk about how it feels almost like a copycat of the first film in some ways. I mentioned that in my review earlier this year where I like to think that I manifested the Vinegar Syndrome release coming to
You
fruition
did.
because I mention it right at the end of that article. So, I mean, I really wonder if, they filmed all this stuff, and obviously part two does have a fairly cohesive storyline, but did they just have this, gigantic spool of film and we're like, okay, let's rip this one in half. Let's put it all together. This is part one. Let's get this one ready and let's call it part two. Um, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, we got a finished product. It's a film that I'm fond of, but yeah, it definitely has a couple of intricacies. Is not the word I'm looking for, but it definitely has a couple little factoids that you got to kind of stop and think about.
Yeah, it had been so long since I watched it, and I think as I talked about last time, was just on YouTube. It was a copy on YouTube,
Hmm.
not the. I'm sure it was just a VHS rip, but now I got to see it in beautiful 4K quality. It was nice, and it starts off hot because we got a good old fashioned manhunt as Charlie Baskin has escaped prison. He killed 3 prison guards, Chris. This guy's a nasty individual. He even kills one of the cops who's chasing him. So we established that Charlie Baskin is pure evil right from the start.
Yep. We find out that he's a Vietnam vet. Maybe had a little bit of that Agent Orange turned him evil instead of insane, and
Hmm.
he is headed for China O'Brien's home base, hometown, and he's got some plans to reclaim something that he feels is rightfully his.
Yeah, he reunites with his non-buddies, and he's got an agenda. He wants to take out the judge. He wants to take out the DA and the cop who arrested him. And also we find out about this guy named Frankie, who was his friend, but obviously something happened there, and we'll learn a little bit more about that as this movie goes on. But while he's talking with his boys, you get some sexy '90s saxophone music, and the bikini-clad Red Fox shows up.
Not my
And
favorite Red Fox, not your favorite Red Fox,
no,
not the one who
it,
faked a heart attack weekly on Sanford and Son and had us all chuckling. Yeah, very different. So if that's your thing, hey, you know what? Photoshop is a beautiful thing because it's not happening here, folks.
right. I would not want to see a bikini-clad Fred Sanford. I think in the him in the hula skirt was enough when for the Hawaiian connection. Um, But yeah, she's like, "Hey, Charlie, you ready for a swim?" And Charlie's like, "Oh yeah, he's got time to make up for it. He's just been in prison, so obviously he's due for some lady time." And then we get right into the list. The district attorney is gunned down outside the courthouse as he's being interviewed. Then we cut to McGuire's Steakhouse, where Judge Martin and his wife are celebrating their wedding anniversary with dinner and a magic show. Would your wife ever want to go to a magic show for your anniversary, Chris?
I don't think my wife or my son would want to go to a magic show at this point in their lives.
No. And this is a shit magic show. Like
A
even
magic show
before,
inside a steakhouse. I
yeah,
mean,
why is this happening? That
that's like a step
tells you,
below dinner theater in Florida.
right? Yeah, how good are the stakes that they have to have a freaking magic act going on? If their stakes are good enough, that's a good enough reason to go. I'd be like, I don't want to see a magic show. I just want to eat this freaking awesome steak, but they're probably not awesome. And just the magician, she's very annoying with her bull crap small talk humor up on that stage, and they bring up the judge. He's going to help with this disappearing act, and she's got like some Chippendale looking assistant, puts him in the box. And I've never seen this in all the magic I've seen, and it's all only been on TV and the movies. I don't go to a damn magic show either. But have you ever seen it where they like the box is empty, and to prove it, I'm going to shoot at it?
No, I mean the
It's usually
oldest trick in the book.
swords.
Yeah, the oldest trick in the book is to use swords, and this was a really convoluted death scene because what if he wasn't picked to be in the box? What would the assassin have done? Just
Yeah.
shot him as he was served his steak? Like, was the magician in on it?
And yeah,
Um,
did the magician get arrested for this? Was it like
yeah,
involuntary manslaughter? What happened to the magician?
and you notice how they kind of bury the lead a little bit, which, when she puts him in the box and the magician fires the shot, they show the guy's wife looking all concerned, like, what is this? What's going on here? Like,
Yeah.
you're at a
Because
magic
she knows.
show.
She knows it too. She's like, when the fuck have they ever used guns in this trick? I've been going to magic shows since I was a young girl. Because this woman's like 82 years old. All right. She's seen a lot of magic shows. Awful.
Something tells me that she will have an aversion to them now that her husband has been slain by one of Baskin's assassins.
Yeah. So yeah, they time it perfect. When the magician shoots, so does the assassin. And like you said, how that, talk about convenient. Like that person lucked out. Then the cop that arrested Charlie, we find out he's now a private detective, and for whatever reason has his desk facing the wall, which is like, why do you want to stare at the wall all day? But anyway, he receives a stripogram, which is much better than a magic show.
Yeah,
Wouldn't
although
you?
this guy handles it like it's his first rodeo. Like, oh, who sent you?
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
my brother-in-law must have sent you. Oh man.
yeah, he's nervous and yeah, titillated and curious all at the same time. But when it's all said and done, he's dead because the stripper was packing heat.
And you know something? Again, rather convoluted. I mean, maybe it was just to get him to let his guard down, but
Right.
she performs, a good 75% of the routine, and it's right before she's about to show off the goods that she pulls out a pistol from behind her boombox. Yes, that's a thing that really happened, and fires off, killing him.
Yeah. And for those who've seen Death Wish 2, a boombox is much better at hiding a gun than preventing bullets. Keep that in mind. We cut to back to our China O'Brien stomping grounds of Beaver Creek, and isn't this convenient? We'll talk about timing, Chris. It's the 4th of July. I mean, it's like we're geniuses that we're reviewing it on 4th of July week.
Perfect timing. More parade footage. We had a parade in the first China O'Brien, and now we're celebrating the fourth with the parade and fireworks and getting reintroduced to some of our favorite characters.
And they're serving pancakes. And
Hot
they're
off the grill
serving
in the middle of the day.
in the middle of the day on the flimsiest paper plates known to man. And they're so and they're pouring syrup on these things, obviously, because they're freaking pancakes.
which are just gonna soak through the plates.
Oh God, I don't understand this. What? Yeah, was this? I don't know. This
I mean,
this
I
was.
do breakfast for dinner with the little guy usually
Oh
like,
yeah,
once a week or so. So, I mean, I'm not gonna knock the time of day, but
I'm gonna
someone didn't
knock
think
the.
this one through. And the
I'm
sad
knocking the
thing
plate.
is that I believe this was an actual parade that takes
Right. This
place
is a
in the
thing.
town. Like,
This
this
is
is
a
an
thing.
actual thing. This was not made for the movie. The movie took advantage of this as a
Right.
backdrop. So somewhere out there in this town in Utah, if I'm not mistaken, there
Correct.
is or was a guy selling hot off the griddle pancakes on flimsy paper plates.
What is it about? I mean, and that you also think it's like, okay, it's a hot summer day. I don't think, boy, I'd like me a plate full of pancakes. That it's not. Well, I guess they're going to end up on the ground. I don't. It's stupid. God, when I saw those pancakes, I was
I mean, when you
very
think of the 4th of
confused.
July, do you really think pancakes?
No, absolutely. That's like, I don't know, maybe for the Easter parade or something. You'd have breakfast with the Easter bunny. I don't know. Give me a give me a break. So also at this celebration is we meet that Frankie, if you will. He has made his way. His witness protection has brought him to Beaver Creek, which is probably, that's the type of town you would think people like Frank would be hiding at. Who the hell knew about Beaver Creek and their damn pancake festival? So he's there. He's
It's one of those
worried.
hidden gems.
And China O'Brien gets honored for cleaning up the town. We find out it's been 2 years since the events of the first movie, but in actuality, it could have been the same day as the first movie, depending on the scene. So she gets honored. She gets a plaque. And then Matt, he's back. Richard Norton brings up
Of course,
three of his young martial arts students to put on a demonstration.
you
And
can't have
here's
Tyne
some.
O'Brien without Matt. You can't have Cynthia Rothrock without Richard Norton. They are
Yeah,
the dynamic duo of the DTV era.
they're very good. Yeah. But here was another curious thing that happened, and so China's watching, these youngsters do their karate. Uh, and she gets a call on the radio that there's trouble at Lizard's bar. Matt notices that she's leaving, and he just abandons his students and goes, tags along, rides shotgun with China O'Brien. Those kids, what?
I mean, hopefully the
Why?
parents are there.
That's no way to be a sensei. That's awful.
Just ditching
But
kids for a hot date.
yeah, yeah. So they go up to the bar. That place is trash, big time trash. Chester, in Beaver Creek, Utah, they have big old good uns and good old big uns, and I don't know which one Chester is, but he's trouble when he gets drunk, and he just trashed the place. So she's like, all right, well, I guess I'm gonna have to go pick him up and take him in again. Go back to the festivities. Dakota's there. We saw him earlier, but we get to see him helping a damsel in distress. The great Keith Cook, of course. And you know what? I was going to save this for the end, but I'm going to say it right now. I wish to God we would have had a Dakota spinoff.
Oh, absolutely. Dakota, yeah, I mentioned that in my review too. And again, we've talked about it. I mean, Keith Cook is great. The China O'Brien films, King of the Kickboxers is Prong. Definitely one of my favorites from all of these films growing up. The Dakota character, especially. He's like a more brooding Lorenzo Lamas in Renegade. I mentioned that in my review. He's got that kind of like outlaw mentality, but he's not like, totally put off to people or anything like that. It's almost like, I don't want to use the term emo because that's almost like making fun of him, but just kind of like that dark and brooding, mysterious type of thing. And in this scene, this was one of my favorite scenes because he showcased his the ability to jump in the air and throw multiple kicks before his feet hit the
Yes.
ground. I've always appreciated that about Mr. Cook. but one of the punks whose ass he kicked was a future co-star, Chris Casamassa, playing one of the unnamed shitheads who were accosting the young lady whose rescue he came to.
Yeah, and I mean he's obviously light years ahead of Lorenzo Lamas in the martial arts department and just does
Absolutely.
amazing things. He deserved his own spinoff. He should have been in a ton more movies. Keith Cook, an absolute favorite of mine.
As the
Um,
main character. Let's specify that. Ton
right.
more movies as the main character.
Even in general, I mean, I would have taken him as more like this, where he just kind of steals the show from time to time, which he
True.
does in both of these movies. Beggars can't be choosers, but yeah, he should have been a main star as well. But yeah, we just needed more Keith Cook in general. Um, we cut back to China, who's now at Chester's, and we get China versus Chester, and
Rothrock
this
versus
is
Redneck.
yeah, this is a big one. And this time though, he ends up tearing up his own place because China's ducking and dodging. She's smaller, but she's quicker. And Matt's just watching on, loving every minute of it. Meanwhile, his kids are crying because their sensei left him, probably. And then we see that trouble, more bad guys are arriving. Um, and Beaver Creeks could be in for some trouble, it would seem. And obviously, that would make sense because we know Charlie's looking for Frank, and if he found out Frank's in Beaver Creek, well, you're in some trouble. So we go back to town now. Chester's locked up. It's 4th of July fireworks time. This is where we meet Annie, Frank's wife. She's very excited about these fireworks. And apparently, I know you mentioned it in your, your review, is like she's apparently China's friend, although she was nowhere to be found in the previous movie.
She was
And we're
not she was not someone who showed up in the first film. And as the runtime of China O'Brien 2 goes on, we mentioned at the start of the show how this was filmed back to back with part one. We see a lot of the same faces. So Frank, who we're talking about here, if you remember back at part one, there was the guy Jake whose lumber was getting stolen, and that led to one of the first fight scenes when China went back to town. That same actor is playing Frank here, so you're seeing a lot of the same faces playing totally different characters. They couldn't even have just kind of tied this in somehow, and I don't even believe that the actress that plays Annie was someone that showed up in China O'Brien Part One. So she actually was a fresh face for the film, playing
right.
someone that we were supposed to believe had a backstory with China.
I mean, based on what we see later, she did live near China, so maybe they were just friends from way back. And obviously, when Frank rolled into town, he must have fallen in love with this woman. I'm
Swept him off
assuming,
his feet.
yeah, because I mean, she has a daughter though from obviously a previous relationship. Perhaps we're digging too deep. Perhaps we're not digging deep enough. But anyway, there's fireworks. But Annie and Frank's time there is cut short because Charlie's goons show up, point a gun at him, and say, "It's time for you to leave." And they're not really discreet about it. I think anyone could have figured this out. But of course, Matt and China aren't going to just not notice this. And so they're like, China's like, "Hey, Annie, what the hell? These fireworks aren't over." And that's when business picks up because the bad guys shoot, and we got ourselves a fight scene. And it seems like everybody's now paying attention to the fight and fuck the fireworks.
And that seems to be a tradition in town. They throw a nighttime event, a big rally, a big gathering, and the sheriff and her deputies decide to brawl with the criminal element. So maybe they're just upholding tradition that was, that set the pace in part one.
Yeah, brawl they do, and again, yeah, obviously this is where the movie is. You really can't complain about fight scenes in the Chen O'Brien movie. You can question the logic of things, we can question pancakes, but we cannot question the fight scenes at all. So the baddies are end up they're getting run off. They're gonna have to go back to their boss empty-handed. And Annie's like, "Hey Frank, you probably need to let China know what the hell this is all about." Um, For whatever reason, he can't tell her there. They go to the police station, and that's where he's like, I was in on this smuggling operation that Charlie had going in Vietnam. Anything you wanted, Charlie could get you. And that kind of carried over when they came back. And there's drugs involved, and all, that just made it worse and worse. And Frank ended up cutting himself a deal with the FBI for witness protection if he agreed to testify. And it was his testimony that helped put Charlie away. So now we get why Charlie is pissed off with Frank, and Frank also stole money from him, which we
Yeah,
don't know at this
those
point.
ill-gotten gains.
Hmm. So now it makes sense. We figure this out. They call the FBI, and Agent Lynn was the guy who was working on this case, but he's no help. And Frank gets he's getting pissed. And there'll be more FBI antics as we go. But Dakota, we find out, is dating Frank's stepdaughter, Jill. How old is Dakota, Chris?
Let's see. So I mentioned this in my review, if I remember correctly, and Keith Cook was around 30 at the time. I don't think that we're supposed to believe that he's that old in this film, because in the first film, he was portrayed as like a young man who was on the dirt bike circuit and, returned home and, saw his mom was involved in some shady dealings. And that's how his hand got broken. Um, I'm gonna guess, judging by the fact that he's involved in law enforcement, he's got to be at least in his early 20s. And Jill, they do not specify an age. I would say if she's a senior, she's still pushing it, but she is a high school student.
Yes. So unless she's a very dumb high school student, which she may be, as I'll get to that in a moment. So if she was dumb, she may have been held back. She could be like a 20-year-old high school student.
I mean, if she's a senior well, wait, but hold on, because I think we missed the most obvious point, and this just dawned on me. We just had the 4th of July parade. Why is he
Yes.
picking her up at school?
That's where I was. Yeah. So she's in summer school because she's stupid. She's been held back 92 times. She might be 42. I don't know. But yeah, I picked. Yeah, at first I'm like, well, that's kind of odd, and then I was like, when I was doing the notes, that's where I was like, whoa, whoa, why was she going to school on the 5th of July? I don't know.
Maybe she's a
So
teacher. Maybe she's like a student teacher. Maybe she's like doing it as part of like a college workshop.
yeah, we'll say that because I mean, I know it's Utah and you can have like 52 wives there, but can you marry them that young? I don't know what's going on over there. Um, anyway, the guys get back to Baskins. They got the bad news, but Red Fox is going to break it to him in the shower, so that should soften the blow. Back in Beaver
Once again,
Creek,
not the actual Red Fox.
no, 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 oh no, please. Back in Beaver Creek, Matt and China are out. Grab a bite to eat at the Country Deli, a hot spot in Beaver Creek. And Matt is like, hey, you know what, China? You should carry a gun until this Baskin thing is settled. But of course, we know China doesn't want to do that. But in case we didn't know, we get a flashback to the one of the opening scenes of the original China O'Brien, where she accidentally shoots a kid. And this explains why she swore off guns.
Yeah, and
I
she
mean,
stays true to it.
we're padding the runtime here with this flashback.
I mean, to be fair, it's only a very brief one. It's not like, those movies that every 5 minutes there's another flashback and, 45
Silent
minutes
Night,
go
Deadly
by.
Night 2, I think, wasn't that one?
Yeah, or 90% of the modern day full moon features.
Right, yeah,
Um,
one of those Puppet Masters was nothing but flashbacks.
but I want to point out that, Baskin is a Vietnam veteran.
Yeah.
Matt is apparently, they mentioned in the first film that he was involved in the special forces, but, he's supposed to be, Richard Norton's supposed to be younger. So, I mean, even if this was filmed in 1988 and released in 92, subtract 20 years, even if he went in when he was 18, they're trying to say that Richard Norton is pushing 40 in this film. But not only that, he mentions that, I never thought I'd hear the name CZ Baskin again. How small was the operation of sending our troops to Vietnam that he knows exactly who this guy
Mm,
is? Like, was Baskin all that powerful, or were they trying to act like,
yeah.
oh man, they only sent like 20 guys over to Vietnam and they just happen to know each other?
It was the smuggling, maybe. Maybe he knew, like, hey, where'd you get that stuff, guy who I know? Oh, don't you know about CZ Baskin and his 31 flavors?
Oh, I see.
No.
I was gonna make the Baskin Robbins joke earlier. I'm glad you picked up on that.
Uh, I'll take the low hanging fruit whenever I can get it. So, yeah, ages are a interesting thing, obviously, in the China O'Brien movies. Um, so yeah, this is what you were mentioning. Dakota picks up Jill from high school. Was she in summer school? Is my question. She must have been. She's again 42 years old. She keeps getting held back, but by God, she won't give up. Uh, and he takes her home. But surprise, when they get inside, Baskin is there with his goons. They have her mom, Annie, captive. Dakota, of course, does what Dakota's going to do. He's going to fight, but eventually those numbers catch up with him. Now the bad guys have Annie, Jill, and Dakota. This can't be good.
No, our heroes were already outnumbered 3 to infinity, and now they're taking the one who's got the speed and finesse on his side.
Yeah, that's a shame. So not surprisingly, Frank then gets a call from Baskin. Bring me my $5 million, and you can get these, your loved ones back, and even Dakota if you want them. Um, and you know what? Meet me at the rock crushing factory.
So again, we're taking the industrial setting of the first film and just, it was lumber in the first film, and now, and I'm pretty sure it's the same locale,
Yeah,
same location, and now it's the rock crushing factory. So again, just a little bit derivative of the first film.
you know what I am looking forward to at some point in the future
China O'Brien
is,
3.
well, yeah, that'd be nice. I was going to talk about Roman Reigns becoming a rock crushing factory.
Oh,
Thank you.
touche.
And of course, obviously, Baskin says, no, cops, just bring me the money, none of that. Um, then China gets a call from someone who may be familiar with Baskin Robbins, Lucille, the dispatcher. And she's very worried because Dakota hasn't done his usual check in. China's like, oh, when's the last time? Oh, it was right before school let out on July 5th. Um, and he's like, oh, he's probably shacking up with his underage girlfriend. Why don't you call over to the Atkins
While
house
he's
and
on the
find out?
clock,
Right.
while the taxpayers are paying him.
Yeah. Why not? I mean, that is obviously the least of the problems if she is an underage girl. She did, Lucille did try, but nobody was answering. And Shine's like, well, I'll just walk on over. So they're neighbors. So again, this is kind of where you could be like, okay, if Annie's lived there her whole life, yeah, I guess they could have been friends. And she just was, I mean, nice that she didn't go to her China's father's funeral, that bitch. Anyway, um, China goes over there. She sees Dakota's bike in the driveway. She sees Frank loading in suitcases into his trunk, and oh, I got to go away on business. Oh, and we get an indication that Frank isn't okay with the Dakota Jill relationship, as nobody should be, unless again Jill's stupid and is much older than a high school student would be. Uh but yeah, China's not buying any of the story that Frank's laying down for her.
Yeah, and he's also not only is he uh, avoidant of her questioning, but he's also just kind of like, very ho hum and kind of talks down to her, and he's just as unbearable as a certain sad sack.
Oh,
One of your favorite dads. I
oh,
think Frank is right up there. with
Yeah,
Jason Stillwell's dad in No Retreat, No Surrender.
what a sad sack that guy is. Well, he might still be the worst, but yeah, he's close. Red Fox, not Fred, in his pickup. Red Fox is parked up the street monitoring the situation. Basically, I think to make sure Frank's not getting the cops involved. So obviously, this woman is clueless that China is not just a cop; she's the damn sheriff.
She is the law, the long arm of the law.
But then it gets even more confusing because China's like, okay, well, we gotta get this together. You know, finds out what the problem is. All right, let me call my boy Matt. Let me call my deputy Russell, who comes over and is clearly a cop. I mean, he's not hiding the fact that he's a cop. And they have their little strategy session for the next day. But then when they leave, since they know Red Fox is apparently watching and can hear from where she's at, she's not that far away. They act like they were just having a friendly game of poker.
And I love your little note over here. Quality acting. What is it like?
Wasn't it
Hey, bye guys.
believable?
Thanks for the poker game.
Yeah, it seems so natural. I really believe that they had a poker game going on in there.
It's almost like when you have like you're directing kids in a play and it's like, all right, kids, act like you're eating ice cream, and the kid just stands there and is like, I'm eating ice cream.
Yeah, yeah, it was bad. It was bad. That was a sarcastic note on my part. At the rock crushing factory, Annie, Jill, and Dakota, they're tied up in the back of a van. And I don't want to say it, but I think Dakota and Jill may have been in the back of a van prior to this.
Ah, touche. If the house is a rockin', don't come a knocking.
Um, and meanwhile, Baskin and his boys, they're just like outside around a fire, blazing saddle style. Just, I think they're eating beans and just, hey, you give me some of the, yeah. They're living the life. Um, we get an interesting fight because Dakota, who has his hands tied behind his back, gets into it with Kurt, who apparently also has eyes for Jill or just anyone. I don't know.
I mean, I
But
can
yeah,
believe that the bad guy's henchman is being a little lecherous. I mean, I could
yeah,
believe that.
that's believable. Yeah, that's good. That's on point for a bad guy.
And I like how
But
you noted that Dakota's got his hands tied behind his back when character-wise, he only has the use of one hand as it is.
I almost put hand. Uh, yeah, he's got that cool hand though. Um,
Wrapped in
yeah, he
electrical tape with the just
with a
like the
box.
metal bracket bracelet.
Yeah, that would make for a great action figure.
It would. It would. I wonder what company could do such a thing.
After the news I saw earlier today, I know what company I should be bothering with these requests. Did
Oh,
you
what
see
news
that
do you
there's
speak of?
a Jessica Fletcher action figure coming out?
That I did not see. I was going to mention to you off air about the Cobra Commander from G.I. Joe the movie Comic-Con exclusive that's coming. But
Oh,
I did
son of
not
a
see that there was a Jessica Fletcher Murder She Wrote figure. Was that Super
yeah,
7?
NECA.
So like one of
NECA.
those like movie figures that you'd find like in the entertainment section at Target.
I believe so. Maybe I can get her and she can hang out with my detective
So
Ray Cameron.
you can
Uh,
get Chucky, Alf, and Jessica Fletcher.
yeah. Yeah. I was like, what? At first, I thought it was a joke thing, like somebody just, and I clicked. No, they announced it. I think some other kind of thing they make too. Like I don't know what the hell it is, but definitely like the classic NECA type figure with the different clothes and stuff. And two different heads, like a shocked, I've discovered murder face and just her regular face. So yeah,
Interesting.
somebody out there is getting a goddamn Jessica Fletcher figure. I am still waiting on my Dudikoff, Paul Kersey, and Dakota figures. I need to get the person from NECA to be my co-host on this goddamn show. What I got to do?
Wait a minute now.
Bob,
I don't think anyone at NECA knows as much about
I don't
action and
care.
karate and kung fu movies.
I don't care. I would just be like, hey, just listen to what I have to say. Uh Moving on. Dakota kicks ass, even with his hand tied behind his back. But of course, bad guys being bad guys are like, well, fuck this guy, and they all just start beating on him. So obviously that doesn't help him. The next morning, we now are ready. They had a nice beating of Dakota. They had their beans. Everybody's ready for Frank to show up. And, you know, Baskin is no dummy. He's like, there could be some, Frank could be doing something. So be on the lookout for anybody who's not supposed to be coming. So Frank pulls up. The guy who pulled a gun on him days earlier says to him, long time no see.
Could have been sarcasm.
No, it was just stupid. That was as stupid as the pancakes, if you ask me. So then, all right, you can go through, but Frank has dynamite. Again, Charlie was right. Frank, and he even says it at one point. You were the smartest of my gang, and the rest of these yahoos are just along for the ride. But you were the smart one. So it seems like Annie, Jill, and Dakota are about to get away. They drive off in Frank's car, but then they start getting fired at, aren't they? Yeah, they like shoot crap. But while all that's going on, that's where China, Matt, and Russell make their presence known. And here we go again. We get an industrial fight this time.
Once again, just like part one. But hey, you know what? And this time, the whole cast of characters is involved.
Right. I guess if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and they just went with it. When it's all said and done, Baskin is like, he's got nothing. He doesn't have his money. He doesn't no longer has the hostages, and the only thing he has added is now he wants China O'Brien dead too, because she just spoiled his whole plan of getting $5 million, and obviously that's a lot of money. When they get back to town, they're like, okay, we got to try to get back in touch with the FBI, but for whatever reason, Agent Lin is off that day, probably because it's the freaking 5th of July, or it's 4th of July weekend. He's like, what the hell am I working for? Why? What am I, stupid? Going to school? No.
It's a federal holiday.
It's a federal holiday. He's off. But Agent Holland is there. And we'll eventually find out if he's a dirty FBI agent. But before they could really say much to him, the call is cut because Baskin's guys are just cutting phone lines. Then they've got some jamming thing that no radio frequencies could go out. They're cutting off Beaver Creek from the outside world, and I felt like I was watching an episode of the A-Team.
Probably because as you type those notes, you were, since it's on right now, isn't it?
I wasn't, but it definitely always feels, there's only one road in and out of town, and it's blocked off, and that's classic A-Team. A Billy Blank sighting happens. Was very excited, and we'll see a little bit more of him later. And here's a great piece of business here, Chris, because now Baskin obviously is bringing the fight to China O'Brien, and that means we're getting fights. They're breaking out all over town.
Street fights, alley fights, back alley fights.
There's a piano involved.
Yeah, a piano which someone is thrown on, and then the piano is dumped onto them.
Yeah, excellent. I mean, if you ever wanted to see a piano used as a weapon, China O'Brien 2 is the movie for you. We get some chefs get involved. They help out.
We don't see them before it or afterwards. They basically just come out. It was almost like they were the cousins of the guy from Police Academy 2, that they were messing with this broccoli and cauliflower. You get two of Baskin's goons that are like looking for China and Co. And they kick like, a box of produce out. And all of a sudden, these two men in your stereotypical white chef outfits, complete with hats, have their cleavers with them and put on a little kung fu demonstration where they're slicing and dicing through Baskin's guys. And then they hit their death blow and walk away. And we never see them again. We don't have names. We don't know what they're doing. We know they're helping the good guys, but they got really pissed about someone touching their produce.
They were like the Iron Chefs, maybe like Chen Kenichi, uh, and his brother Bob Kenichi. I don't know, but they're there. Um, and yeah, we get a fair fight this time between Dakota and Kurt, which is nice to see. Um, and while all that's going on, Frank and his wife and stepdaughter are at the police station, which becomes the target of a Baskin attack. And that's forcing everybody inside to go out. And that includes our big man Chester, who they
Yep.
managed to get
Guns
out.
and tear gas.
Yeah, it's like an assault on precinct 13, but not. Um, and meanwhile, we get China, and there was like the one bad guy was like an Asian bad guy. So we get that fight. And then we find out why Billy Blanks just popped up for no reason. He was there for a very good reason. And you actually presented this back in the days of the scene of the week.
I did. It was this was early in Billy's career. He was actually uncredited for this fight. As I found out doing more research on this particular film, this particular part was actually added after production had wrapped because they wanted to extend the runtime of the film, and they did it by giving us Keith Cook versus Billy Blanks for the first time ever.
Right. And obviously, these two gentlemen would be in the wonderful King of the Kickboxers together. Just a fantastic. That's now might be towards that might be number 2 on my Blu-ray wish list after Iron
Hopefully, it'll
Eagle.
be showing up at some point soon. But now you mentioned the gentleman, the Asian gentleman. Are you referring to the man with the Freddy Krueger claws,
Yes. Was
Mr.
it Robert?
Obata, who played Tatsu from Ninja Turtles?
Ah, Ninja Turtle.
He was
Ninja.
also in Rage and Honor, if you recall. He was her
Okay.
brother's henchman. When I
Okay.
say her, Cynthia Rothrock, Rage and Honor, not Rage of Honor, starring Sho Kosugi, which we just mentioned on the latest Sho Kosugi, well, the latest edition of Ranked, which were the Sho Kosugi films of the 80s.
Right.
Um,
Yeah,
but
we
yeah, he
talked
was
about that
in.
on our last episode.
That's right. What was his name in? He was in Showdown in Little Tokyo too. He's been in plenty of movies that we enjoy here at
There
Bulletproof
was a
Action.
showdown in Little Tokyo too. Thank
Uh,
you.
Also something I would like to see.
You
Let
you
me
better
just look
believe it.
real quick.
Do it.
And
People love when we people
a
love when
film
we
that you and
stop.
I were just talking about the other day. He was in The Hunted with Christopher Lambert.
Oh, I have a copy of that from Goodwill. I was going to send it to Chad Cruz because it seems like a real Chad Cruz kind of movie.
That's an excellent
Uh,
movie. I have that on
but
DVD.
yeah, I kind of want to watch it before because I've never seen it that I can recall. So I need to watch it and then send it to Chad Cruz. Unless I love it so much and I'm like, screw Chad Cruz. He can get his own copy. Uh, so yeah, we get that. The battle. The
You
Atkins
also
family
did not
makes.
mention the best part of the fight at the bar, and it's not when China O'Brien was battling the Asian gentleman. So let's backtrack. So China O'Brien and
Yeah.
Matt are in a fight at the bar. There is an Asian gentleman who had been sitting there previously. Oh, and you want to talk about quality acting? How about the waitress that she's like, the phone lines are all cut. Like she's saying it like matter of factly,
Yeah.
like not in
Yeah.
any sense of danger or an emergency.
Yeah.
She's just reciting her scripted line.
And
But
how does she know they're all cut?
exactly. And
Did she
so
go to every place? Liar. Go on.
apparently not because the sound advice from the chef was, "Hey everybody, they're shooting outside. Get away from the windows." Um, the Asian gentleman had been sitting there like all day, like, waiting for his coffee or whatever. And
Yeah.
when the action starts, we see that he's wearing not one, but two Freddy Krueger style finger knife gloves, which he's using as a weapon, which is actually what turns out to be his downfall when China O'Brien kicks the sharp end into his chest. But
Mm.
not those claws. I'm talking about the guy who came flipping into the room, essentially doing jazz hands And Cynthia Rothrock's reaction to him was to take him and hurl him. And I mean, and I love Cynthia Rothrock. I love these films, but I'm going to call a spade here. This spot was like what you would normally see Lou Ferrigno doing to one of like the flunkies that gets tossed around on the old Incredible Hulk show, because you see this guy and you can kind of see the wire still attached to him, and he just goes flying through the window. Sorry, not the window, the wall. So Cynthia
Right.
Rothrock, China O'Brien has enough force to throw this man through the wall, and his reaction as he's sailing backwards is almost as if he's like reaching out for something. Instead of like being thrown, it's almost like he's reaching for like that last piece of pie or like the last candy bar or something like that. It is the funniest scene in the entire movie. And believe me, I do show a little bit of favoritism to these films because I love them. I hate to knock them or trash them at certain points, but watching this scene, I never realized how goofy this scene was growing up until I watched it recently, and now it's probably my favorite scene of the whole movie just because of how absurd it is.
Give it a check. Check it out, folks. Vinegar Syndrome. They have your copy waiting for you. So yeah, the Atkins family has to get out of the police station. They go out the back door. And that's where Chester is not long for the world. And we just start killing people off at this point
Yeah,
in the
lots of
movie,
gunplay, lots of bodies dropping.
including Frank. Poor
Shot in the
Frank.
back.
But did so by for his family's good. And where did Baskin get it too? Why am I not?
Baskin did get it too, because this was my
Yeah.
critique of the film. So in China O'Brien 1, the main villain, the kingpin of crime, if you will, was a man named Summers. He was
Yes.
responsible for destroying the town, corrupting the town, putting his yes men on the police department, bringing hookers in, trafficking people. And he was not done in by Dakota, who wanted revenge for what happened to his mother. He was not done in by China O'Brien, who wanted revenge for her father being killed, her friend being killed, the other deputy being killed, the woman that lived in the house. I'm not sure if it was the father's girlfriend or just like the maid, whatever, Maria. But, all these people died at the hands of this man or by his actions, and he was killed by the random nameless woman that he had been
Oh yeah,
raping
that's
in
right.
his bedroom.
Hmm.
And now at the end of China O'Brien 2, where Baskin said, I want that bitch China O'Brien dead, and they kidnapped Dakota, and he's shot and killed by Frank's wife.
That's
So
right.
again, we get I mean, at least she's more of a secondary character than the woman in the previous film, but it's another film where our heroes face down the threat, but they're not the ones that get the actual win.
Right. And was that they don't want to? I mean, well, we already have Dakota who could potentially be sleeping with an underage girl, but you don't want your heroes to do anything non-heroic. I guess I don't know. Wasn't that always like with the Bruce Lee Golden Harvest movies? Like always the cops had to get involved at the end.
I
Like
mean, at least that type of stuff was,
you had to be
like
punished for if you did that even as a hero, you can't be glorified.
right.
You you had to you face the law, face the music. I don't know. But yeah, Baskin, they're done. They're done with. We kind of wrap things up with a funeral for Frank. We find out all that money was donated to the local hospital. They're going to build a whole new wing. That'd be nice. And then this is the part that
I know where you're going with it because I feel the
this is
same way.
this is the part that I was just like, really? China and Matt walk off from this funeral. Oh man, Lucille and Russell are dead. Oh well, that's sad. Movie ends.
Yeah, she's just like, what, like, oh, it's so sad what happened to Russell and Lucille. I'll miss them so much. And
Mm,
again, it's kind of both movies had really abrupt endings. It's almost like the fights were great, like the build up to the climaxes and stuff were all really good, but it's like, all right, how do you wrap it up? And they literally just kind of like end. Like in the first movie, they were like, oh, Summers is dead. The feds are coming. Blah 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 blah. You're officially the sheriff, and they ask Dakota to stick around. And then Richard Norton's character, Matt, he's like, let's just all just go discuss it over a beer. Like it ends in like a sitcom style with like a freeze frame,
right,
like yay.
right.
And then like this one, like it's not even like a cliffhanger or I've got to keep protecting this town. I can't let this happen again. It's like, oh, these people died. That sucks.
Yeah, I mean, she's kind of got the Paul Kersey Death Wish 3 attitude when his lady love slowly rolls down a hill in her car or his car and just blows up. And he's just like, eh, another one bites the dust, just walks away.
I mean, at least at that point, you could say that he was so
Yeah,
desensitized to death.
he was very desensitized. Yeah. But yeah, thinking about what you said, like the first one, you would should have almost ended with like, all right, we were finally able to count all the ballots. You've been voted sheriff, and like that's like the big finale, and the whole town celebrates. That would have been a better finish, but that came earlier, and then it's all right. I'm not going to rebook the movie. I mean, I could, but what good's it going to do?
I mean, don't give me column ideas. Rebooking China O'Brien.
Yeah, I've certainly seen worse column ideas this week. Um, so China O'Brien 2, your final thoughts, Chris.
Uh, you know, I've said it earlier. I've said it to you. I love these films. This was a white whale for a long time. I was relying on a VHS tape and a VHS rip to DVD for years. Watching them back with older eyes, more recent viewings, I do see where some of the flaws lie, things that we talked about here in this podcast. But this is my comfort food, man. Two of my favorite movies growing up. I remember back in the day when they were on cable, easy to spot at the video store. These are the movies that really cemented me as a huge fan of Cynthia Rothrock. So, despite those quirks and despite some of those little knocks that we had to give it, overall, this is still one of my favorites. It's not going to fall any further down the ladder than just kind of poking fun at some of the holes in the story. This one still holds up for me.
Yeah, these both the China O'Briens were not movies I grew up with. I just did not seem to have access to them, or I never caught them on cable. I didn't have the right channels. I don't know what the hell was going on, but I was unaware of the China O'Brien movies until I started writing on this for the site, and then started looking and digging deep into stuff that I either had not seen in forever or just never saw. So I don't have the nostalgia love for it, but I still enjoy the movies, even though, again, yeah, upon this second watching, the whole Dakota thing kind of creeps me out a bit. And I love Dakota. He's my favorite character in these movies because he's awesome and he deserves an action figure. Uh, and he's just awesome. Those kicks. He can kick 15 times. He jumps up once and takes out 15 people. I love it. You're awesome, Keith Cook. Not that you're listening, but if you are, let me tell you, you're awesome. Um, but yeah, I love it. And as you said, to finally get these movies in a beautiful format, I hope it's a sign of more things to come. I hope I'm going to just start putting you on, giving you assignments on all my movies. So
So I
you
can
might have to
manifest them into reality
exactly
in hopes
because
that Vinegar Syndrome
you
is
you
reading
can't
this.
manifest my figures, but if you can manifest my movies, I guess I should keep you around.
And
And
I
you've
do
done
want
it.
to mention that Vinegar Syndrome, I don't know if anyone from them is listening. Maybe we can even send this to them. But my 4K disc of the first China O'Brien appeared to have a little bit of an audio issue. Reached out to them, and within a matter of days, they sent me a brand new copy of that disc to test out. So excellent customer service, helping out, making sure that I have something pristine. I'm going to test it out and make sure we're all good. But shout out to them not only for making this, but for standing by their product and helping a loyal customer out.
Excellent. Yes, it's always great. Yeah, I've never had an issue with Vinegar Syndrome, and it's good to see that when you did have a little issue with it, they took care of it right away. That's the type of people you want to do business with. Um, and yes, we pay for all our Vinegar Syndrome stuff, folks. We're not getting this stuff for free.
That's right. Yeah,
So
there's no payola going on here. I'll show
no,
you the receipts.
I wish there were, but there's not. So yeah, definitely check it out, vinegarsyndrome.com. They have, a lot of great stuff over there, especially if you're into the more obscure. Um, all right, well, let's wrap up this episode, this 4th of July week episode. This was a perfect movie to do. Um, Social media. You can follow Bulletproof Action at Bulletproof Pod on X and at Bulletproof Action just about everywhere else. I talked about it last time. As this drops, so does my guest appearance on the DTV Connoisseur podcast, where we talked C. Thomas Howell in The Sweeper, a PM Entertainment classic. And I have another guest appearance coming up later this month, Chris. Another podcast right here on the Geekscape Network, the Monster Rally podcast. I'm talking G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra. That drops on July the 16th, a movie that I had not watched in quite some time, and I remembered why. But, I will always love to talk about G.I. Joe, even if it's G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra.
Has it been 15 years? Is it the 15-year anniversary for that one?
It's,
2009, right?
yeah, I didn't think about it, but yes, it is. The Monster Rally podcast is during their Steven Summers, or Summer. So that's why they did it. But yeah, 15 years. That's oh god, I'm old. While I think about how old I am, do you have anything you'd like to plug, Toyman?
As always, I would like to direct any of the collectors out there over to Figures Toy Company for all of your wrestling action figure needs, as well as retro action figures of the Three Stooges, of Hanna-Barbera and DC Comics characters, which are still in stock and still on sale. I've mentioned earlier that licensing is going to end for those figures in 2024, so please get those figures while you can, while supplies last, because once figures are sold out, they will no longer be restocked. As far as the wrestling figures, most recently we've gotten in some of the brand new FTC wrestling figures. I call them the supplementary figures. They're characters like referees and security guards. We've got announcers and valets, all of the types of figures that you would want for displays and figure photography. They'll be coming into stock. They are 6.5 inches tall. Female figures are 6 inches tall. They're compatible with Mattel Elite style figures with very similar articulation. They're not like the Jax based Legends of Professional Wrestling and Rising Stars line. So please check those out at figurestoycompany.com. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Zach Malibu. It's where I post all the links to all of my columns, all of these podcasts, everything I do for Bulletproof Action, plus all of my input into the world of pop culture, various movie references, talking TV shows, all stuff of that ilk. Follow me if you're into all of that.
Absolutely do so, folks. Zach Malibu, a great follow. The Toyman himself, of course. That's your alter ego, Zach Malibu.
It all blends together. I'm a toy man. I'm a Malibu. I'm all of these things.
You are a lot of things, indeed.
Kind of like when
Next,
you had the Green Hulk and the Gray Hulk, and they just all merged together into the Smart Hulk.
mm-hmm. Well, if you're smart, you'll check us out next time because we are scheduled to talk about Harley Davidson and the Marlboro Man, and that is a Chad Cruz pick. So, in theory, that should be a Chad Cruz episode. If we don't get to that, though, if the next time you hear it, it's not that, it's because of Chad Cruz. I'm just going to blame him and throw him under the bus right here and right now. We will pick something different, and we'll talk about that. And as we mentioned last time, I believe, at the end of July, we will be talking Gymkata in honor of the Olympics.
An excellent
Another Richard Norton film.
Yeah,
but
Richard
a much
Norton. We
different Richard
can't
Norton.
keep him off the podcast.
We cannot. We
I don't know if
cannot.
I'd
So,
be able to talk you into an Ironheart episode, but we can certainly talk Jim Cox.
no, I don't. I don't have. No, I don't want to watch that movie again. So there you go. That's what's coming up here on the Bulletproof Podcast. And of course, we appreciate the fact that you joined us for this episode. And as always, stay tuned for more of the Bulletproof Podcast.